for decades, and that was that North Korea was committing unspeakable human rights atrocities and crimes against humanity, and gross violations of human rights that had no parallel in the modern world. But what North Koreans have done internally to change things dramatically inside North Korea is also extremely important. Kim Jong-un's North Korea is not the North Korea of Kim Il-sung or Kim Jong-il because of these changes. And these changes have been because of the people of North Korea. Just to give you an example, even though they live under great extreme tyranny, it is the women of North Korea who created the market system that rose up when the public distribution system collapsed, which is what triggered the famine in North Korea. These markets have released them from the stranglehold of the PDS system that made them wholly reliant on the Kim regime for survival. We saw the regime repeatedly try to control these markets by restricting access to the women, by setting age restrictions. Then they tried in 2009, December 2009, they tried to reassert control by a currency devaluation. And I don't know if you recall what happened at that time, but a remarkable development occurred. The regime actually backed down and decided to just let these markets function, and they executed a man named Park Nam-gi, and they blamed him as the scapegoat. Then they did something that they had never done in their entire over 70-year history of repression. That was, they apologized. Now these markets are functioning, and the North Korean people are no longer dependent on the PDS to survive, but on each other. But the North Koreans inside North Korea have also brought about another dramatic change: information. Their hunger for information has dramatically changed things inside. It's the North Koreans in North Korea who bravely risked everything to learn information from the outside world so that they're no longer cut off by the Kim regime and no longer literally living in the dark. You know well they're watching Western films and they're watching South Korean soap operas. South Korean soap operas are very popular in North Korea. They're listening to radio broadcasts, which has made them realize the reality of their circumstances. I know defectors, women defectors, who told me they were fascinated by the kitchen gadgets that they saw that South Korean housewives had in these soap operas. Now, for those North Koreans who've resettled in South Korea, in other countries, most of them are women. And many have been involved in rescuing their family members, so that now over 30,000 people have escaped from North Korea. I know one North Korean woman who's rescued 7,000 of her fellow citizens through her own underground railroad. I call her the Harriet Tubman of North Korea. And Jinhae-jo, who you're going to hear from after, and this panel is coming up next, is another North Korean woman who's been rescuing other North Koreans that are trying to escape. She's currently in the midst of rescuing how many right now? 84 that she's rescued, and you're trying to rescue about 20 or 30 more. So there's another another example of a North Korean who escaped, who's turning all of her time and energy into rescuing others. Many North Korean women are using brokers to send in money and to communicate. We were just talking about that, sending in money to help people, to help loved ones they left behind, which is another source of information that from the outside world. In addition to driving the human rights movement with their testimonies, many North Koreans have published their memoirs so that there's a far greater knowledge about North Korea than ever before. In fact, I'm always telling Jinhae, you've got to write your book. You've got to write your book. She's about halfway through. But I know you're familiar with the fact that there's been many North Korean stories that have been published now, so that we're much more knowledgeable. And it's also very important that it is the North Koreans who've escaped, who've taken over the work of getting information into North Korea that was once carried out by the South Korean and the American governments. Remember that South Korea and the United States had programs like balloon launches. Operation Gila was an American military operation. It was a balloon launches, getting information into North Korea. And the South Korean government used to be very active in radio broadcasting, very much focused on getting shortwave radios in. When the dark period in Korean history known as the Sunshine Policy occurred, South Korea stopped all these programs, and the North Korean escapees took up this work. They're the ones that are leading these efforts to get information out. However, despite these changes that have happened inside North Korea, the human rights situation has not improved. The human rights conditions have not improved at all in North Korea, and it's North Korean women who are especially vulnerable. Furthermore, I believe that the refugee situation for those trying to escape is actually worse today than when I first got active in this issue over 20 years ago, because when Kim Jong-un became dictator, he and Xi Jinping escalated an already brutal crackdown on the people who are trying to escape. And it's the women that are suffering the most. And I want to talk about that, especially because of the focus of what you're discussing tonight. It took decades for the international community to finally recognize that the Kim regimes were committing gross violations of human rights, and that their systematic human rights violations had no parallel. But even though we recognize that now, nothing has happened to improve the suffering North Korean women face. And we've learned more about the political prison camps, we've learned more about the refugees escaping, and we're finally now beginning to understand what it's like to be a woman living in North Korea.
여기 외국분들도 계시고 해서 그렇게 하겠습니다. Good evening. On behalf of the NUAC Seattle chapter, I welcome you to tonight's Korean American Women's Leadership Forum on North Korean women's human rights. As the president of NUAC Seattle chapter and as a woman, I am delighted and honored to host this forum to bring additional exposure to this very important issue. I extend my deepest appreciation to our keynote speaker, Susan Solti, Vice Co-Chair of the U.S. Committee for Human Rights in North Korea, and internationally recognized and award-winning human rights activist. She has been working for over 18 years to promote the freedom, human rights, dignity of the North Korean people. And I'd like to welcome Jin Jo, a courageous woman, defected from North Korea. She is sacrificing her safety and security to share with us firsthand the struggle for basic human rights. And also a warm welcoming to our State Representative Mike Pelchori. It's hard to say. Pelchori, for joining us tonight to provide his support and further insights on this topic. And I especially want to thank Counsel Kyung-sik Park from Seattle General Consulate and State Representative Cindy Liu for presenting the congratulatory remark for this event. And really, say thank you to this event committee chair, Seung-ji Jo, and Vice Chair Joanna Chung, and all the committee members for their dedication in making this event possible. In the United States, we enjoy our freedom and the rights guaranteed to us by our Constitution. Sadly, people in North Korea live without basic human rights. That is the reason why we needed to work together to realize the goal of a peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula and put a stop to the injustice being done to the North Korean people. So please share information you will gain today to spread to the world on the importance and necessity of a peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula. Lastly, I really thank you all for your attendance and hope you have meaningful time tonight.
State Representative Shim and Lichori, is it the right pronunciation? Okay. And Senator Im came from Oregon, and Sujan Soti, President of Defense Forum Foundation, and distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me here, and it's an honor for me to make a chance to make a speech at this very special event. As you may be aware, during the last few months, there has been the highlighting the tensions among North Korea and US and South Korea. North Korea conducted a few nuclear tests and missile tests. South Koreans and people in the US, including Washingtonians, became greatly concerned and worried on North Korea's dangerous behaviors. Now, the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier is near Korean Peninsula, and no one knows how long this tension would last. In these days, the main issues of our discussion and media coverages are about Kim Jong-un and President Mr. Trump, and about Korean presidential election. However, under these circumstances, the thing we should not forget and should keep in our mind is the rights and the freedom of North Korean people who lived under the dictatorship and a miserable living condition and a constant threat of purging or being sent to labor camps. I think today's forum is very timely because I feel North Korean human rights issues a bit overshadowed by big pictures such as nuclear or the missile test. When Mrs. Sujan Schulte, the keynote speaker today, she was awarded the Seoul Peace Prize in 2008, and I checked the Google and found out that this sentence she made, and she said it's a great honor to receive this great prize, even when I just did what I should do.
Yearning to visit the ancestral lands north of the DMZ as a woman, and then of course human rights. And in Washington State, we have been working on passing a lot of really good laws, and we have several legislators in Washington State who have worked tirelessly on human trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking, and many other human rights issues that we can do at the state level. And of course, we are also championing that at the national level. And of course, we would love to work across the Pacific Ocean with the Korean government and the ROK, as well as eventually, hopefully, the North Korean government, on how we can actually support one another better by being kind to one another, treat each other with respect, so that we all are valued as women, men, children, even elderly, disabled. So it's an issue, it's a human rights issue, and I really appreciate your putting this forum together, and I look forward to everything that every speaker will be sharing with us today.